Good morning, everyone. Want to see the base from my ridiculous B-Series VTEC all-wheel drive CRV Wago van swap? Here it is. The thing is stripped completely clean. There's nothing left in this thing except the wiring harnesses for the body. Drivetrain is out. Everything essentially is out, aside from the glass. What I'm going to try to do today is take a first generation 97 to 2001 Honda CRV rear end, which I'll show you. Let's take a look and go through my collection of various Honda engines. 66 Barracuda. And here we go. We've got a first gen CRV right here. We've got the front spindles, differential, subframe, and trailing arms. And then of course the shocks and all of that too, which I'm not sure what we're gonna need. We got a drive shaft down there and some rear axles. We have to figure out what we're gonna need. But anyways, we're gonna see if this thing will bolt into a wagon. It's been done before, but it's not very well documented, so we're gonna do it. Want to see something crazy? The CRV first gen rear subframe, control arms, and sway bar, that whole assembly bolts directly up to a two-wheel drive Civic wagon. So that doesn't make it so we can do all-wheel drive yet, because I still have to figure out how we're gonna mount the differential, but I think we can do it. So what I'm gonna do next is figure out if the rear trailing arms are a direct bolt-in as well, figure out what upper control arms, toe arms, and all of that we need to make this work. And then we'll figure out the differential at another point. I'm basically just trying to get this car rolling so it can be moved, and then we'll work on it as time goes on. Now I will say there's an issue right here with clearance. You can see that I can't bolt the rear subframe up directly, completely flush with the body. So what I'm going to end up doing is probably using, say, probably 1/2 inch aluminum spacers to give me the clearance I need. It'll give me just a little bit of extra lift too. And this thing will have natural lift too, with these lower CRV parts as opposed to the stock two-wheel drive wagon rear end. Now that we have the CRV rear subframe and control arms, we have to use the CRV shocks. The only issue with the CRV shocks is that they are so much bigger, they won't work with the body of the wagon. They bolt in up top and they fit at the bottom, but you can't get the trailing arms to bolt up. You see, these are the shocks that were on the wagon. Now, of course, it was lowered, so they're a little bit smaller than they would be from stock, but that's a good 6 to 8 inches difference here. So what we're gonna do for a proof of concept, these CRV shocks I have are just cheap, junky throwaway ones I got off a parts vehicle. I'm going to get the cap off of this, and I'm actually gonna cut the spring down about 3 inches and see what that does for fitment. And if that works, what I'll probably end up doing is getting a set of coilovers, lowering coilovers designed for the CRV to get it closer to the 3-inch mark without having any cut springs. So these, I'm pretty much throwing these shocks away, but it's for a proof of concept and I don't have any money in it. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and get the spring compressors on here, get the cap off of it and cut it down, and see what we can do. All right, so I cut out a good chunk of the spring. I wasn't able to get the top head off of this one, so I ended up just having to chop the spring in multiple pieces to get it off. But anyways, I've basically removed that much, and of course it's compressed too, so it's going to expand once I remove the spring compressors, and it'll fill a little bit better. But anyways, let's go over here and take a look, because I already did this on one of them just for a proof of concept. And this is what we've got going on here. So I've got, once again, CRV subframe, CRV lower control arms, CRV trailing arms, and then now I've got CRV suspension parts too. Now, I recommend not cutting your springs. I'm going to find something smaller, but I didn't want to waste money on something if it wasn't going to work. So I tried this first, donated them to the cause. But it looks like it's going to work. They probably should have been cut a little bit smaller because there's still some issues getting everything to fit. But it's not too bad at this point. As you can see, we have a stock CRV wheel on the car. And at this point, it looks kind of ridiculous. We're going to need to come up with something a little bit better. And it maybe looks a little bit more ridiculous too because the front of the car is so high. So we'll see once it gets down on all four wheels again. So right now I'm at the point where I'm about to figure out how to bolt the differential into this thing. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge because the two-wheel drive model, at the very least, doesn't have any spots to bolt a differential in. So it's going to have to be custom drilled and cut, and it has to be absolutely perfect. If it's not centered, it's going to wobble and vibrate, I'm sure. So we're going to have to figure out exactly where it's got to go, and then we'll go through and drill the holes, get it bolted in place, and then I'll need to put a bracket in to attach it to the rear subframe. So that'll require a little bit of creative fabrication as well. So here's what we're working with here. So I've got the stock CRV differential right here, and then the cradle for the differential right there. Now I've got it bolted up. I don't have it bolted up yet, but I have it where it's going to bolt up. As you can see, there's a bracket right here for the fuel filler neck that is in the way. So for now, I'm going to just unbolt this and take it off completely just to get it out of the way. And then what I'll do is cut it so I can use the rest of the bracket. So it'll bolt in one place instead of two. So that's not a gigantic issue. Additionally, I'm gonna try to use the stock CRV diff mounting bolts. They're pretty long. Sorry, the camera won't focus on it. But we're gonna send it up through there. And it's got a good 2 inches at least before it goes through. So hopefully that's enough to go through the floor. And then I'll show you what we've got to work with up top. So if my calculations are correct on the location, we're gonna have a hole come about right here or maybe right here, and then the same on that side there. And since this isn't structural steel, we're gonna have to, the only way I can figure out to reinforce it adequately is just use big fender washers here. So we're gonna try that and see if we can make it work. Now the next thing here that's gonna be a challenge, I'm not gonna do it today, is you see that the differential mounting bracket does not mate up with the hole there. Well, I'm gonna have to fabricate some type of bracket, and actually going through some of the junk, and we found these old CRV toe arms, and I think what we can do is cut them down because they're rigid steel. I mean, they're about as thick, if not thicker, than what's already there, and get creative and cut it and weld it to this piece, and then drill a hole in the adequate spot, and then use this as an extension to that bracket. And we'll see how that goes. So I just drilled the holes for the subframe mount here. Unfortunately, it is thin sheet metal here, but you can see the light of day right there. So I went up through the chassis, should be straight too. Did the same over there. I got the bolt already in the hole just to make sure it was straight. So what we're gonna have to do in order to make this a little bit more sturdy is figure out how to reinforce this. I'm not worried about this side because it's got this metal plate up here, but on the inside I am gonna have to reinforce the actual body of the car. All right, we've got the diff partially bolted in here. As you can see, we still need a fabricated bracket for this right here. If we get down here, you can see that it is bolted in. We had to use slightly longer bolts than the factory ones that came off the CRV. This is not a permanent solution right here because unfortunately it is thin sheet metal. And I'll show you where the holes come up through the body of the car. Now this is a pretty janky setup. We just have it coming through with a couple fender washers and some nuts. This is not, once again, the permanent solution. I just wanted to get it into place. So we're gonna have to figure out some type of way to make this a little bit more level and then also reinforce this sheet metal so it doesn't give with any torque from the vehicle. But we'll figure that out at another point. I'm just happy we got it in. So here's what we're working with so far on the front end here. As you can see, the whole thing's on jack stands. The back's going to have a considerable lift, but it's not going to be quite as much as you see there because there's a jack stand. So what I did was went ahead and grabbed a spare adjustable upper control arm off of an EG, I believe it was. It does bolt right into the EF chassis. So that will need to be adjusted because the camber is going to be kind of weird. We've got the CRV spindle in here, which is a direct bolt in to the upper control arm, and the stock EF lower control arm bolts right in. So the next thing I've got to do is figure out the steering. So I've got the manual steering rack right there, which I'm going to throw in. I'm assuming it's going to be considerably too short. I think this spindle here kicks out the whole thing a lot. So I have a feeling if there's not going to be enough adjustability on the tie rod there, I'm going to have to figure out something else in the way of tie rods. So hopefully there's enough adjustability. Now, as for the springs in the suspension, that is what gave me a terrible time. So I originally had lowering springs on this car. That's how I bought it. It was a set of Yonaka lowering springs. Well, that obviously wasn't going to work with this setup here. So there's a lot of chit chat back and forth online of what you need to do in order to get a CRV swap done on your Civic suspension wise in the front. Right now what I have here is my stock suspension out of my EF sedan there. That thing up until this afternoon had stock suspension, so you can see the front's a little bit lower now. I pulled the front springs out of there and shocks and swapped them onto this, and as of right now it's way better than it was when I had the lowering springs on. When the lowering springs were on it, this right here was basically hitting the frame, so there's a lot more room here. So I think that's going to help us out immensely, but we won't really know until we actually get it down on the ground. But until we get this, I'm not going to do that until we get the steering in. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the rack on and see what our whole situation looks like when it comes to the steering. So I went ahead and put on the manual steering rack that it had from the factory, and as you can see, it's right there, bolted in, tie rods are in. Now, I didn't mess with the tie rods whatsoever. So I centered this thing out, and look at that. Aside from a serious camber issue this way, that's pretty dang straight. Look at this one. This one is also really straight too. It's gonna have some minor adjustment that needs to be done, but it's actually much better than I thought. So once we adjust these adjustable upper control arms back, we should be able to take out this this camber issue. But this makes me wonder if we can use the stock CRV axles with this thing, because it seems like the wheelbase is very, very similar. I won't be able to know until I actually get the new drivetrain bolted in, but I'm hopeful that it'll work. I'm pretty certain we're going to have to put an actual CRV, like we're going to use a CRV drive shaft, but we're going to have to cut it down. So, but I don't know about the CV joints, so we'll see. That'll remain to be seen. Now I want to show you guys the back here. It's not completely done at all. Of course, we still have the issue with the non-adjustable upper control arm, so we've got a serious angle on our wheels. And then we also have an issue with the how we're going to mount the diff permanently, because it's definitely kind of janky the way it is right now. So we got to figure that out. But I want to show you, because I actually went through and put the axles on now that the differential is bolted in place, and they look good. I mean, this thing I think is going to work. So let's take a look down here, and you guys can see for yourselves what we did with CRV parts and very, very little outside work. Yes, this is indeed a Honda Civic wagon, folks. Look at this. You look underneath, you'd think it's a CRV. It's got, once again, CRV subframe, CRV diff cradle, CRV differential, CRV axles, CRV lower control arms, CRV suspension, and trailing arms. And it looks good. Like, if you look under here, you wouldn't know that this was not designed to go in this vehicle. Look at this. All of it. These axles, even though the differential is in a different location relative to the rear subframe, as you can see here, doesn't made up. It doesn't seem to be any issues with the axles in the back causing a binding problem. That'll remain to be seen once we get it down on the ground and roll it around and see what happens. But it looks like it's going to work. So once again, we've got a fabricated bracket here to get this actually bolted, because this whole thing, I'll put my foot on it, you can see the whole thing is just flopping around. It's on the bushings there, so it's got a lot of give. We'll get that done, taken care of, make sure that thing is as level as possible, and get it done. But I just wanted you guys to see that you can actually use CRV parts in a Civic wagon. 5 lugs right there. We did it. A lot more to do, but concept has been proven.